Chapter 2. Sometimes when bad luck comes your way, you think it will never end. Molly Moon often felt this way about her luck, which wasn't surprising since she was so often in trouble. If only she'd known that her luck was about to change, she might have enjoyed the following day, for by the end of it, Molly would feel that all sorts of wonderful things were going to happen to her. But that morning, from the moment she opened her eyes, after sound sleep on her lumpy orphanage mattress, Molly's day started to go wrong. This is how it happened. She was woken up with a shock by a bell ringing loudly in her ear. Big-boned Hazel, Miss Adderson's pet, liked to wake Molly up as violently as possible. Hazel had her shoulder-length black hair neatly scraped back under a hairband, and had already squeezed her athletic body into her tight-fitting blue school uniform. "It's the cross-country races at school today, bogey eyes, and that 50-word spelling test," she announced. She walked away, swinging her bell happily, delighted to have ruined Molly's morning. Molly quickly dressed and went into the bedroom that Rocky shared with Gordon. Gordon threw a soggy paper cup at her to welcome her. Rocky was singing to himself, oblivious of everything around him. "Rock," Molly said, "did you remember the spelling test today?" They tried to catch up over breakfast, only to have their homework books confiscated by Miss Adderston. Then Miss Adderston took great delight in watching Molly clean the loo with her toothbrush. By 8:30, Molly was feeling sick. The morning didn't improve on the way to school either. Their school, Breyersville Junior, another grey stone building, was a 15-minute walk downhill from the orphanage. On the road, one of the village boys threw a water bomb at Hazel. When she ducked, the water bomb hit Molly, exploding on impact and soaking her. Hazel and her acolytes and the 4 older orphanage children thought this was very funny. As a result, school started with Molly and Rocky missing assembly, trying to dry Molly's cardigan and shirt on the radiator in the girls' cloakroom. They knew they were going to be late for their first lesson, which was an unwise move. "Late," said Mrs. Toadley, the form teacher shouted as they entered the classroom. "And you missed assembly. I shall give you punishments later. Achoo!" Miss Toadley had a small sneezing fit, which always happened whenever she got worked up. Molly sighed. More punishment. Miss Toadley's punishments were imaginative, and, of course, Molly knew about them firsthand. For instance, when Molly had been caught chewing paper for the 10th time, Miss Toadley had made her sit in the corner of the classroom and eat a pile of computer paper. It had taken Molly 2 hours, and it was particularly unpleasant. It was very difficult to pretend pulpy paper is actually a ketchup sandwich or a donut that tastes of paper. Molly hated Miss Toadley, and she was glad that she looked so repulsive, blubbery-faced and half-bald, with a stomach-like water-filled rubber bag. Her appearance served her right. Molly might have pitied Miss Toadley for her noisy gurglings inside, for being allergic to everything and so sneezy. But, as it was, she hated her. Miss Toadley's sneezing fits usually useful for cheating, but cheating together in today's spelling test was out of the question, as neither Rocky nor Molly knew the answers. They sat down at the 2 worm-eaten desks in the front row of the class. It was a test from the land of gobbledygook. Not only did the class have to spell the words, but they also had to give their meaning. Molly and Rocky blundered through, guessing the answers. When they finished, Miss Toadley collected the spelling test and set the class to an English comprehension exercise, as she set to work marking them. She started with Molly's. Within minutes, Miss Toadley's squealy, high-pitched voice whistled through the classroom, followed by a succession of loud sneezes. Molly's stomach went tight as yet another telling off began. Her strength began to crack. After all, a person can only take so much battering. She put on her best anti-tell-off armor and switched off. She had to stop Miss Toadley's cruel tongue hurting her. In her mind, she floated away from the classroom until Miss Toadley's ghastly tones were tiny and distant, as if coming down a telephone line, and the squirmy pattern on her stretchy skirt became purplish-orange blur. "You got notorious wrong," came the squeaky voice. "Achoo!" "It actually means famous, but in a bad way. And I must say that that's you all over, isn't it, Molly? Eh? 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 Molly sat up. Molly Moon, will you listen to me for once, you useless girl? I'm sorry if I have disappointed you, Miss Toadley. I'll try harder next time. Miss Toadley snorted and sneezed and sat down, her veins throbbing with adrenaline. Molly gave the morning 10 out of 10 for dreadfulness, but in the afternoon something much worse happened, and it was nothing to do with the teachers. After lunch, Molly's class changed for cross-country running race. It was pouring with rain, and the paths that led up the hill, away from the school and into the woods, were muddy. Droplets of rain ran down the cloakroom windows as Molly searched for her lost gym shoe. By the time she found it, she and Rocky had stepped out into the rain. The others were a long way ahead. Rocky wanted to catch up, but the slippery ground made progress difficult. After running through the sludgy woods, Molly needed to take a break, and Rocky was beginning to wheeze. So they sat down on a bench under a tree for a little rest. Their gym shoes were sodden, and their legs were cold and wet, but their plastic anoraks had made them feel hot. Rocky took off his and wrapped it around his waist. Come on, he said, let's start again, otherwise we'll be way behind. Or why don't we just go back, suggested Molly. Molly, said Rocky irritatedly, do you want to get into trouble? You're mad. I'm not mad, I just don't like running. Oh, come on, Molly, let's keep going. No, I just don't feel like it. Rocky tilted his head and looked searchingly at her. He had spent the last 10 minutes helping her find his shoe, which had made him late too, and now Molly wanted to get them into even more trouble. Molly, he said exasperatedly, if you don't come, they'll probably make us go round twice. Why don't you just try? Because I'm no good at it, and I don't want to. Rocky stared at her. You could be good at running, you know, but if you tried. If you got better at running, you'd like it, but you won't even try. Rocky looked up at the rain clouds above him. It's the same with lots of things we do. If you're not good at things, you just give up, and then you're not good at things more, so you don't try more, and then you're even worse at things, and then... Oh, shut up, Rocky. Molly was tired, and the last thing she wanted was a lecture from her best friend. In fact, she was shocked that Rocky should bother. He was normally so easygoing and tolerant. If anything annoyed him, he'd normally just ignore it or wander away from it. And then, continued Rocky, you get into trouble. He took a big, fed-up, wheezy breath. And you know what? I'm sick of you being in trouble. It's as if you like it. It's as if you want to get yourself into more trouble and become more unpopular. Molly's heart jolted in amazement at his unexpected words, as his unexpected words stung her. Rocky never criticized her. Molly was furious. You're not so popular yourself, Rock Scarlet, she retorted. That's because I'm usually with you, said Rocky, matter-of-factly. Maybe actually it's because no one likes you much either, Molly snapped. I mean, you're not perfect. You're so dreamy. It's like you live on a different planet. In fact, communicating with you is like trying to get through to an alien, and you're not exactly reliable. Sometimes I have to wait hours for you to turn up. Like yesterday, I waited ages for you by the school lockers, and you finally wandered up as if you were on time, and you're so secretive. You're almost sneaky. I mean, where were you yesterday after school? Recently, you've been disappearing all the time. People may think I'm weird, but they think you're just as strange. You're just like a weird wandering minstrel. Still, they like me more than they like you. That's for sure, said Rocky truthfully, turning away. What did you say? I said, said Rocky loudly, they like me more than they like you. Molly stood up, giving Rocky the filthiest look she could. I'm going, she said. Now I know you think you're much better than me. And you know what, Rocky? You can run and catch up with the others. Go and make yourself more popular. Don't let me hold you back. "Oh, don't get so worked up. I was only trying to help you," said Rocky, frowning. But Molly was enraged. It was as if something inside her had suddenly broken. She knew she was less popular than Rocky, but she didn't want to hear it. It was true that everyone bullied her, and no one ever bullied Rocky. He was untouchable, confident, difficult to upset, and happy to daydream. Hazel and her gang steered clear of him, and he had plenty of friends at school. Other children secretly wanted to be like him. Molly hated him now for betraying her. He glared at him and puffed his cheeks out in an "oh, you drive me crazy" way. "Same to you, too. And you look like a stupid blowfish like that. Perhaps some of your new friends will find it clever." As she stamped away from him, she yelled, "I hate this place. In fact, I can't think of a worse place to be in the world. My life is just horrible." Molly stormed off through the bushes. She wasn't going to do the cross-country race, nor was she going back to that miserable school today. She was going to her special place, her secret place, and they could all whine and moan and shout until they were blue in the face. End. End of chapter 2.